All right, Tiffany, that was a great segment. We were talking about just Crystal Beach there outside of it's in Galveston, right? It's no longer Crystal; it's more like Mud Beach right now.
Well,
it's never the same.
It's never been the same as it was prior to that. Has it gotten better? Yes, over the last 30 years.
It's
20 years.
never the same.
But it's not.
So
if you had ever seen it prior, you wouldn't be sitting there going, "That was a great example of." It's not.
It isn't. And so
preventing things like that should be a top priority. And when somebody says about, I'm just tying this back to what we're talking about here.
Mm-hmm.
When somebody says, "Hey, we're doing all that we can do," are you? Because you had over 800 derailments in 2022. So that says to me, you got a problem. And if you're doing all that you could do, then all that you can do is prevent derailments. You start with preventing derailments, decreasing the number of derailments. But it doesn't seem like that's what's being done.
But then also the efficiency question of where they are. So now you have it coming out where the railroad workers, right, who are part of a union, and I know generally in Republican circles, unions are considered the devil, right? But where union members were asking for things such as basic time off, right, and not to be on this efficiency metric, right, where they can call you in to work anytime, right? They can call you in. And then the Biden administration joining in and saying, hey, we need the trains to flow because it's national security, right? Rather than, we can address national security issues, which I'm always have a question mark. Anytime people start saying national security, it just shuts everything down and they don't want to look at the details of what's being asked. And what those workers were asking for was one additional day off to where they could have a time to just unwind. And have more staff on, right? But the decision was made out of profitability and they could run the train system, quote unquote, more efficient, which is based on dollars, not quality of people's thought lives, not quality of humans, right? And that's not, and I have a hard time when I start saying that as it's coming out of my mouth. Quality of life. I'm like, oh my God, is this some type of liberal mindset or something? But it's not.
Quality of life is germane to every human being, and it has nothing to do with politics. It shouldn't be tied to politics, and it shouldn't be politicized so that we'll all choke down yet another atrocity against the middle class. Something to remember about the people of Palestine and the people of Jackson, Mississippi, is that they represent the middle class and the working class people that are often forgotten and seen as dispensable, as we see with over 800 derailments happening in places like this with black people, white people, whatever, people that are considered, hey, this is a, what do they call it when?
Acceptable. It's an acceptable loss, an acceptable risk.
It's an acceptable loss. This is an acceptable loss. Being an acceptable loss is unacceptable.
It is.
And it's something that, we try to put words to it because we say things like we've been forgotten. We've had people who are deciding what risk management plans and who have said they can manage any ugly thing that happens to us and our lives are dispensable.
Yeah, it is an acceptable loss. That is what people, when they look at what is the percentage, what is the chance that this could happen, right? What are the percentage of people this is happening to, right? It is acceptable. It is an acceptable loss. And that when you look at Jackson, when you look at Palestine, when you look at chronic kidney disease and diabetes, right? They can gaslight us all the way because we are acceptable losses.
Can and do. And they do it with language because they've been planning and working and having meetings and having this and that. Go listen to what they're up to.
So this is
follow the money.
Yeah, follow the money. This is one of the things
it's always green
that I am a big fan, if you will, of Newt Gingrich, especially the 1994 stuff where it says to rule, the language to rule by. Right. Mm-hmm. And that is, you see that more now. There's a language to gaslight people by. Right. And you see that in the mainstream media. Right. Where there's oftentimes this hyped focus on race. Right, which is a critical part, right? Mm-hmm. But there's this hype focus on that, and then you have the conservative part of media, right, which then responds in reaction to that, and they know that those items, right, when they advertise and present these programs that have to do with race, right, that those are their big money makers. Mm-hmm. So anytime they can do those things, they will. Now, I'm not against talking about race because I think when race is an issue, it's an issue. When mm-hmm. it's not, it's not. And sometimes when race is an issue, it's an issue that we can overcome.
Sometimes things are multifactorial.
Yeah, they can be overcome and we can find commonality.
Often money.
Yep.
Money is what is driving a lot of things that we are experiencing today. Mm-hmm. And being able to use race to divide us is just a lucky, happy coincidence for the people that are out there dividing us.
And that being said, let's nuance that because, mm-hmm. right? Because a lot of people will then come around, especially a lot of people in our audience will come back and say, well, see, that's why we need to de-racialize everything. And you black people talk about race too much, right? No, we don't. No. But when it's about race, it's about race. But if we're willing to set that aside and find commonality mm-hmm. across our outcomes that we desire for mm-hmm. things that are good for both you and me, right, and feed into the American value system, then listen, come join with us.
The moment we join together and start putting the profiteers in their place, we're unstoppable.
But Tiffany, you sound like you one of them lefties.
No, that's not
you're against capitalism.
Nope, it's not against capitalism. Profiteers and capitalism are two different things.
Okay, tell me more.
Profiteers are people that are out there utilizing systems to make the most profit and not caring about or factoring in quality of life for people. Mm-hmm. You can have a healthy, happy capitalistic society without destroying people's health, mm-hmm. without destroying their neighborhoods and communities. You can buy brakes and put in the right braking system for trains. It's going to cost you something. Your profit margins may be impacted, but the 800 derailments mm-hmm. that happened in 2022 don't necessarily have to happen in 2023 and 2024.
And the toxic soil and the cleanup that you're trying to send to Texas.
That's right.
Right? You could have saved that by simply putting some capital into those brakes
and thank you, Texans, for saying, heck no, deal with the mess you've made here.
Yeah. So let's kind of wrap because we're running out of time here. So kind of draw this down to a wind down, right? Is that, often we have a couple of sayings around here, right? We also practice these at our home, right? One, nobody's coming to save us.
Nobody is.
Right? They're simply not. Two, we have more in common. We're more alike than we are different. Right? You see, I struggle with that one, right? And that
it's a fact, though.
It's a fact. Right. And that at the end of the day, we live in America. Right. And I do believe in American exceptionalism. We are the greatest country in the world. Right. And we have the resources. It's not like these things that we don't have the things to solve the problems. It's not like we have to go and invent some medication. We have it. There's been an egghead somewhere who's invented that. It's not like we have to go and invent these brakes.
Well, here's the thing.
We have it. We know how to keep water clean.
Here's what I'm saying about profiteers. We have all of these tools, but there are folks that are dragging their feet on getting the drugs out there. Why? Because there's more profit for them in people being sick. There are folks that are dragging their feet on putting in the right braking system because there are more profits to them to run the system as it is and deal with the derailments. We are in this situation because profiteers have been allowed to rule by the rules. So what we have to do now is create transparency so that we understand what those rules are. Request definitions for language, because often they are talking and using one word that we have a definition for and they've got a different one for. Diagnosis is one of those words. In healthcare, let's talk about that. In diagnosis, when we say that kidney disease is diagnosed,
what does that mean?
We think that the moment you see kidney disease in our blood work, that you're telling us that that's a diagnosis. Kidney disease is there. It's not. It's not. And that one smoke screen right there is something that right now we see the hockey puck of kidney disease having risen the way that it has, just catapulted over the last 30 years, and the lack of advocacy for revelation of that knowledge, because every single one of those doctors and nurses who's had a transplant and talking the talk and walking the walk, honey, they all know that. They know when diagnosis is, and that the recommendation is to monitor the patient. And and they also know that the interpretation of that recommendation is don't say anything to the patient until diagnosis, which is in stage 3.
But oftentimes stage 4.
Stages 3 and 4, which is at the end of your
when you've lost
kidney
between
function,
40,
when you've lost significant kidney
40
function.
to 60%, 40 to 50%
So
of kidney function.
you've got advocates that you got a question mark as to who are they advocating for. You've got systems where people have been bought and paid for with a whole lot of different things, and you've got profiteers running amok within it.
And you've been listening to On the Record with Tiffany and Kevin on 9:30 a.m. The Answer, home of conservative talk radio,
where we're demanding change.
Straight no chaser.